Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Debrief on ABC News Live. I'm Kimberly Brooks. Thanks so much for joining us. A big night in Detroit, round 2 of the Democratic presidential debates. Plus, we're talking to the former mayor of Baltimore about those Trump tweets, and we break down that Capital One data breach. But first, here are your headlines.
Police say 2 mothers shot and killed in Chicago were working to end the violence on city streets. They were part of the group Mothers Against Senseless Killings. Police are now searching for suspects. For the second time in 1 week, a young tourist has been attacked by a bison in a national park. This time, it was a 17-year-old attacked in North Dakota. Park rangers say he somehow got in the middle of a fight between 2 bison and one charged at him. Just days earlier, a 9-year-old was tossed in the air by a bison in Yellowstone National Park. The latest victim spoke to us over the phone.
At first, I kind of didn't believe it. Oh my God, I'm getting charged by a bison right now. There was nothing that I did to aggravate him. And then all of a sudden, I kind of got this feeling that something was chasing me. And then all of a sudden, he just throws me into the air.
17-year-old says he is an experienced hiker and didn't think something like this would happen. He's recovering after being airlifted to the hospital. U.S. Soccer says the World Cup champion women's national team has been paid more than the men's team. The federation paid about $34 million in salary and game bonuses to the women compared to $26 million for the men.
A spokeswoman for the women players says the figures are misleading. She also called it a sad attempt to suppress support for the team.
A jury in Los Angeles finds that Katy Perry's 2013 hit Dark Horse improperly copied a 2013 Christian rap song in a unanimous decision. The case now goes to a penalty phase where the jury will decide how much Perry and other defendants owe.
And today, everyone is gearing up for a big night in Detroit, the Democratic Party's second presidential debate by CNN. So 20 candidates over 2 nights, and Maggie Rowley is right there in Detroit with all of the details. Maggie, good to see you. What should we be looking out for tonight? A Warren versus Sanders matchup for sure.
Kimberly, always good to chat with you. And you said it perfectly, Warren versus Sanders. They're the big 2 names, the big 2 progressive powerhouses for the party. And they're going to be head-to-head tonight. Remember, it was chosen randomly, but the fact that the 2 of them are going to be sharing center stage is kind of the major storyline tonight. What's going to happen? Now, historically in the past, the 2 of them, they say they're friends, they're buddies, they don't want to go after each other. And to be honest, they kind of see eye to eye on a lot of issues, so they might not even have that much to attack each other on. But, you know, Warren has seen a huge surge in the polls. Sanders has kind of been left behind a little bit. He's going to use that as a chance to battle back, try to get some points. She has the momentum, he doesn't. So it'll be interesting. Do they stay good friends? Do they start to attack each other? Do they attack tomorrow night's candidates? Do they attack President Trump? These are the questions that we're thinking about. But Kimberly, the other sort of storyline is that there are 8 other candidates on stage tonight because there's 10 in total. And we're curious what we're going to hear from them. For a lot of those other candidates, the non-Warren and Sanders, they're more moderate. This could be their chance to really make a splash, to make a scene. Maybe they want to go viral. For many of them, this is their last-ditch effort to gain some momentum, gain some numbers in the polls and in fundraising. Because remember, everyone has to qualify for the next debate happening on September in ABC, and it's going to be much harder to qualify for that debate. So for some people on stage tonight, they're just desperately trying to hang on. It's going to mean some good drama that we're watching, Kimberly.
And Maggie, how much will the president be a part of the conversation, especially the tweet controversy?
Well, it's an interesting thought. And if we look back to the last set of debates, you know, in the first night of the debates, President Trump was hardly mentioned at all. The second night, his name came up almost nonstop. So what's going to happen tonight? You know, it's hard to imagine them ignoring some of these major polarizing issues, or tweet controversy, race, things that the Democratic Party really wants to stand up for. And especially as we mentioned the fact that Sanders and Warren are 2 of the headliners tonight. If they choose to stay friends, if they choose to not attack each other, perhaps they instead go after the president. Sanders is known for always bringing up President Trump. So perhaps tonight will be no different, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
All right, Maggie Rowley right there in Detroit. Thank you so much. And we have all of our campaign reporters on the ground. So I want to check in with Adam Kelsey following the Sanders campaign and Cheyenne Hazlitt following the Warren campaign. Cheyenne, you know, Warren had a busy night ahead of this debate. What was that like for her?
Yeah, Senator Warren last night was in Toledo, Ohio. It's just a city about an hour south of here, and it was a city you drive in and you drive to the event, and it's closed storefront after closed storefront. A lot of reliance on manufacturing there, and Warren really delivered on her debut of her new trade policy, which is aiming to put workers ahead of big corporations, she says, in the future of trade agreements. That was something that resonated, as you can imagine, with that city there, just struggling with Jeep plants and an auto light plant, that the future of them staying in Ohio may be at risk.
And Adam, so Adam is not with us yet. Cheyenne, have you talked to any voters on the ground about what they're looking for tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. And Toledo being a sort of a rural community, a lot of the voters there who were in from the surrounding area, and like I said, only an hour here from Detroit, a lot of people had passionate things to say about healthcare and securing quality healthcare and quality mental health care, too, for people who are struggling financially to make ends meet. They also were really excited about climate change. They really wanted to talk about how to address it, and they feel like farmers catch a lot of flack for contributing to the issue of climate change, and they want Democrats tonight on the stage here at Fox Theater to be able to speak to that level of how we can change issues relating to climate change for the everyday American and somebody who's working on a farm and is worried about runoff, things of that nature. So people were really amped up about any time Senator Warren mentioned environmentalists getting more involved in trade policies or how to address climate change through manufacturing and green research.
And Adam is with us now. Adam, can you tell us how Bernie is planning to prepare for tonight?
Well, it's an interesting question because when you talk to the Sanders staff and his surrogates, they kind of laugh about that question. They say he needs less preparation than so many of these other candidates because he's been so consistent for so long. You look back at his record in public life, stretching now almost 4 decades to his time of mayor of Burlington, Vermont in the early 1980s. He was talking about these same issues then, things like climate change, economic inequality, healthcare reform, as the mayor of that city in Vermont, the same things that he's going to be talking about on the debate stage. So when it comes to debate prep, you're going to get less of the traditional preparation that we see from the other candidates, not really the note cards and the briefing books and the studying. And instead, in these past couple days, what we've seen from Bernie Sanders is he's continuing to kind of make campaign stops. Instead of being holed up in a room, he was traveling across the border to Canada a couple days ago, buying cheaper insulin with a number of people who have type 1 diabetes, making a point about healthcare reform and the rising cost of prescription drugs. And then we were able to confirm late last night that he spent part of the day yesterday filming a campaign video with rapper Cardi B, talking about some of the issues in this campaign and Cardi B's support of Bernie Sanders. So instead of, like I said, studying, going over those note cards and those briefing books, still out on the campaign trail, making some, what he would say, important points about some of those positions.
All right, Adam Kelsey with us and Cheyenne Hazlitt. Thanks for joining us today. We're definitely going to be watching that. And you know that ABC News Live has you covered for tonight's debate. Coverage starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, so don't miss it. And now we're going to turn back to Baltimore and President Trump's attack against Representative Elijah Cummings and the city he represents, calling it a disgusting rat and rodent-infested mess. And the president continuing those attacks this morning. So take a listen.
Baltimore has been very badly mishandled for many years. As you know, Congressman Cummings has been there for a long time. He's had a very iron hand on it. It's a corrupt city. There's no question about it. All you have to do is look at the facts. I am the least racist person there is anywhere in the world. When conmen, who I know almost all my business life, because I had to deal with them, unfortunately, in New York, but I got along with him. Al Sharpton. Now, he's a racist. He's a racist. They are so happy at what I've been able to do in Baltimore and other Democratic-run, corrupt cities. The money has been stolen, what they've done. It's been wasted and it's been stolen.
So these are attacks that left Democrats calling him a racist and Republicans largely silent. So I want to bring in Stephanie Rawlings Blake, the former mayor of Baltimore. I'm very happy to have you with us today. I just want to start with how you actually process these tweets and if you were even shocked given all of the offensive things that the president has said in the past.
I certainly wasn't shocked, and thanks for having me. I mean, he's attacked me in the past simply for doing my job. I think not shocked. I'm certainly disappointed. He's using very irresponsible language that's not helpful, and it is certainly not the behavior that I would expect of a public servant.
And so just in your community and the people that you have discussed this with, what has the response been?
People understand that Baltimore has challenges. I don't think anyone hides from that. Large urban areas, old cities have challenges, but his rhetoric and his attacks aren't helpful. If he cares about Baltimore enough to talk about it, he should care enough to do something. And you can't, you know, when you start casting the stones, or as I used to be told when I was little, if you point a finger, 4 more are pointing back at you. He has some responsibility. Baltimore also is in a state that has a Republican governor. If he cared, he could work. He doesn't have to work with Democrats who he thinks are all corrupt or whatever. He could work with the Republican governor to help move Baltimore forward. There are lots of ways that he could be helpful. What he's doing isn't.
So some Trump defenders continue to use the economy as a defense for these type of remarks. So I want you to take a listen to Secretary Ben Carson last night on Fox News.
I don't think Elijah Cummings is a bad person. I think he actually is working hard to try to help people. And I certainly don't think President Trump is a bad person. He's working very hard. And in fact, I asked him today, would you be willing to work with Elijah Cummings to bring some relief to the people of Baltimore? He said he would be happy to. But also, you know, unemployment is at a very low level. Manufacturing is coming back. Wages are going up. You know, prison reform. All of these things are happening. These are not things that a person who was a racist would do. And we allow ourselves to be distracted by these things. And I think what President Trump was trying to say is that rather than spending your time talking about, you know, our brave border agents and investigating endlessly things that you can't find anything on, why not spend some time working more for these people?
Yeah, so what do you make of that argument that you can't be racist because the economy is doing well?
There's so much wrong with that statement. I don't know where to start. The fact that he's saying that he's not a bad person, you know, this is a distraction. You know, good people can do bad things. So whether or not Ben Carson, Secretary Carson, believes that Trump is a bad person is irrelevant. To say that he doesn't believe that he's a racist. Racists know that he's a racist. That is undebatable. And the thought that Congressman Cummings can't walk and chew gum at the same time is also silly. He can do his responsibility, perform his responsibility as his oversight responsibility and work for the people of Baltimore, and that's what he's done. Again, pointing out problems isn't helpful. Attacking isn't helpful. We know what Trump is doing. He's on the, you know, his back is against the wall because he knows that the investigations continue, the rightful, lawful investigations continue, so he goes on the attack to distract us from the truth. And my hope is that instead of, you know, I love the We Are Baltimore. I love the Baltimore Strong. I hope this encourages people who care about Baltimore to yes, I love the social media, but there are community associations that need volunteers, volunteer groups that need help doing everything from cleaning up those areas to volunteering in rec centers. I mean, there are tons of things that you can do if you care about Baltimore and other cities to lift us up instead of trying to tear us down. He's the president of all of these United States and all the cities in it, and he has a responsibility that he is abdicating. In exchange, he's just bullying.
Yeah, and just before we go, to go off of what you said, you know, a lot of the conversation is back and forth. It's targeting Baltimore. It seems like it's a political game, which kind of normalizes this behavior. In your opinion, what should the conversation be moving forward so people don't get caught up in the tit for tat?
It's not normal. It's sad. It's actually crazy. When I think about his behavior on a daily basis and the fact that we're going back and forth talking about it as if it's normal, it is not. You know, as a mother of a teenage daughter, I am embarrassed that the language that comes from the president. He should be better than that. America deserves better than that. Baltimore deserves better than that. I encourage, people to look past, the daily drama, the daily show, the reality show that it's the White House, and stay focused on what people care about. People care about health care. People care about jobs. People care about having safe communities. That's what we need to talk about, particularly as Democrats. We can't get distracted with his foolishness. We need to be focused on the things that are going to improve the lives of all Americans.
Stephanie Rawlings Blake, former mayor of Baltimore, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And we move on to the town of Gilroy, California, still reeling after that horrific shooting that killed multiple people, including a 6-year-old. But amid the heartbreak, messages of love, hope, and strength. And our Will Carr is live in Gilroy. Will, before we talk about the community, we did learn new details about the shooter and his potential motive, yes?
Yes, good morning, Kimberly. And this is still a massive crime scene. Authorities here say it's going to take days to actually comb through all this, and it comes as we are learning more about that gunman, the 19-year-old. Officials say they are combing through his social media pages, including an Instagram page where he had some white supremacist messaging. He also had a post right before this festival about the festival, before he actually cut through a fence and went onto the fairgrounds here and opened fire with an AK-47 style rifle. We're actually learning a lot more about that gun. We've learned that it was purchased on July 9th in Nevada legally, but it was transported here into California illegally. The gun owner who sold that gun to the suspect in Nevada has said that the suspect appeared happy when he purchased the gun, and really there weren't any red flags. At the same time, authorities searched a home here locally that was once associated with the gunman as they served a search warrant, trying to search for clues for the big question, which is the motive here. There was also a search for a second suspect. It's still unclear if the gunman had any help here, but I can tell you this morning, Kimberly, that there's not an active search for another person. Kimberly.
Wow, it's still really unbelievable. And in the midst of this, the community is trying to come together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this has been a soul-crushing attack on this small, tight-knit community. There was a vigil overnight. 3 of those victims who were killed are being remembered, including that 6-year-old boy who had a love for Batman and for Legos. He was here with his mother and his grandmother when he was shot in the back. At the same time, we are hearing some amazing stories of survival. We spoke to 2 best friends who were here. They were enjoying their Sunday night. They said they came here for beer. They wanted to listen to some live music and hang out with family and friends. Instead, they witnessed that gunman come out from behind a trailer and just start shooting. Both of those men actually were grazed by multiple bullets. It's really amazing that they survived. They ended up reuniting in the hospital in a very emotional and joyful reunion. And this morning, they tell me they are grateful to be alive, and their condolences are going out to the victims who lost their lives. Kimberly.
Thank you, Will, right there in Gilroy, California. We appreciate the updates. And we move overseas to Sweden. The trial for Grammy-nominated rapper A$AP Rocky starting today. Reminder, he was charged with assault after a fight in the streets of Stockholm last month. And A$AP Rocky says he acted in self-defense. So it's a case that has sparked outrage and prompted President Trump to publicly call for his release. And he's been held in prison since his arrest. So I want to go to James Longman in London with the latest. James, what was the scene in the courtroom today?
Hi, Kimberly. Yeah, so A$AP Rocky was brought into court today in handcuffs. He was wearing a prison shirt, a green shirt, as is normally worn by prisoners in Sweden. His mother was there, and as he came into the room, he gave her a big smile. She was wearing an A$AP Rocky jacket, and his manager was there alongside her. He's had a lot of support, as you say, in this case, but today really was about the argument of the plaintiff, this alleged victim who says that he was attacked by ASAP Rocky. And the prosecutor started by asking him why it was that he even began to approach ASAP Rocky and his friends. He said that he wanted to ask where his friend was, and actually he had no idea who ASAP Rocky was, and that this indeed was the rapper, and that this was his entourage. And that when he asked this question, the bodyguard then pushed him away. The prosecutor then went back to him and said, a lot of people are asking the question why you didn't just leave at that moment. And if you will have seen the videos ASAP Rocky put out just a few days after this apparent altercation, which seemed to show these two individuals following his group through the streets of Stockholm. Again and again and again, the bodyguard, other members of the entourage, ASAP Rocky himself, warned these two young men, please keep away from us, and they don't do it. They kind of keep on following the group. And so the prosecutor asked, why did you do that? And he says, well, what the bodyguard did to me wasn't nice. I was just wanting to ask where my friend was, and that's why I stayed. And he wanted to also to ask for his earphones back. There's another moment in one of the videos where the earphones seem to be used as a weapon of some sort. And there's also been discussion around a broken bottle. The allegation is that a bottle was used as a weapon, but no DNA has been found on that bottle yet. So it's unclear whether the prosecution will continue to use that as a line of argument.
Yeah, and so, James, before we go, 2 more days of this trial, yes?
Yeah, that's right. A couple more days. There's going to be a break in between. Friday is when we'll see some kind of verdict. It's possible that ASAP Rocky will be given a 2-year sentence, although the Swedish prosecution have said that they won't go for the maximum penalty.
All right, James Longman right there in London with the updates. Thank you so much. And guys, we moved to Rome, and those 2 American teens arrested in the stabbing death of an Italian police officer. And in a news conference, prosecutors are saying they have up to a year to investigate and formally charge the men. So I want to go to Ian Panel in Rome with more. Ian, will the 2 teens be held in custody during that time if it is in fact a year?
Yeah, I think it's most likely that they will. I mean, the judge who was part of the investigation had said that they considered them dangerous, possible flight risk. Remember, when the police picked them up, they were getting ready to go to the airport. This was after the alleged crime was committed, so it's pretty safe to say that they don't think they'll be released. Also, there is no bail system here. Just wanted to paint a picture of where we are at the moment, because this is where the deal went down. This is quite a famous square inside Rome, or one of many famous squares inside Rome. That's a finance ministry there. It looks super quiet now, but in the evening, the atmosphere completely changes here when the sun goes down. It becomes slightly edgy here. It's an area that's known for drug dealers. Over there on the other side of the street, again, you may be able to make out there's a couple of little markets there at the moment, but this is an area that's known for lots of bars, lots of nightlife activity. American universities based here, and lots of American students come to this area. But this is the area I want to show you the most, because this is where the alleged drug deal went down. I want you to try and see if you can see the camera up there on the wall, because we saw some security footage which shows the 2 American teenagers approaching this guy with a backpack. This was apparently after they tried to buy drugs. The drugs he gave them were not what they were expecting. They went back, ultimately stealing the backpack, and then eventually this materialized with the 2 policemen going to retrieve the backpack and ended in the crime.
All right, Ian, unfortunate situation there. And of course, we'll stay updated on this story. Thank you for joining us today. And want to ask you guys, do you have any Capital One credit cards? If so, then you may have been one of more than 100 million people impacted by a newly disclosed data breach. The suspect, a Seattle area woman, arrested yesterday. So I want to bring in Jeremy Kaplan, editor-in-chief of Digital Trends, to break this down. Jeremy, how do you know if you were in fact one of the people, one of the 100 million that was affected?
It's such an enormous number, right? So
yes.
If you're breathing, you've been affected. It kind of feels like that, right?
Yeah.
Capital One being one of the country's largest credit card providers, they said they're going to notify consumers who have been directly impacted. I think the large scale of this is probably going to be one of the biggest financial data breaches of all time. The large scale, I don't think really tells the whole story. A lot of it is going to be credit card applications, so bits of your personal data, your address, whatever. They're not going to tell you about that. They'll tell you if your credit card was compromised, if your personal bank account was compromised, much more important details like that. So look for that email and then react if you get it.
So, I just want to know how these breaches keep happening and what do we know specifically about this suspect, this woman?
Yeah, I kind of want this all to stop, right? You feel like that steady drumbeat of data breaches just has to end. This one, to be fair, very unlike the usual one. This woman that's already been arrested, and fantastic that they were able to move this quickly. She worked for the Amazon Web Services platform that Capital One built its operations on. So she actually knew the security system in and out because she helped build it, which is why she was able to hack into it so effectively and easily, and then bragged about it online, like just the kind of thing you shouldn't do as a hacker.
Right.
Little lesson to the hackers out there: don't brag about it; they'll catch you.
Right. So this is the thing, and you pointed this out to us. When Capital One put out the statement, they said no bank accounts or social security numbers were compromised, other than about 140,000 social security numbers and about 80,000 bank account numbers. So what do you make of that? I mean, none compromised except all of these people.
How infuriating is that, right?
Yeah.
That's what gets my goat about this story. If you're the CEO of a major company and this happens to you, just fess up and be direct with people about it. And this feels like them trying to word their way out of a problem. No social security numbers were affected except for 140,000 people. So lots of people were actually affected. Don't try to paper over that, just admit it.
Yeah.
Lots of people were affected. We don't really feel like we did anything wrong here, but we're sorry about it and we're working to clean the matter up. You could just be honest. People will understand that. And companies trying to word their way out of these problems, it's maddening.
So before we go, I just want to ask you, how do you protect yourself from something like this? I mean, we all use credit cards. We all have to put our information in so many different things, so many different forms. What's the way to protect yourself?
Well, the good news here, the silver lining, if I can call it that, is that the credit card industry has actually gotten very, very good about policing itself. So when there are, if your credit card is compromised, for example, somebody goes to the local deli and runs up $150 worth of charges or whatever, you never pay for that. Almost never, I should say. Credit card companies are very good at identifying flaws, proactively calling you when they occur, and then wiping them off of your balance sheet. So even if your card is compromised, I would say don't fret too much about it. Ordinary steps that you should take for data security in this day and age, I think, are always important. But I don't think people really need to take extra steps. I think the credit card company industry has already done a lot of that for us.
All right. Well, again, if you get that email, I guess people will know if something happened when they read it. So I want to thank Jeremy Kaplan, Editor-in-Chief of Digital Trends. And guys, before we go, a special edition of The Briefing Room coming up to you today live from Detroit. So Devin Dwyer is there. Devin, what do you have on tap for us?
Hey, Kimberly, we're coming to you out front of the historic Fox Theater here in downtown Detroit. That's where tonight's second Democratic presidential primary debate will take place. 10 candidates tonight, the two big ones, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, political allies, but they'll share the stage tonight. Also going to be taking some attacks we expect from the moderates in this campaign. We're going to hear from, coming up on the briefing room, the architect, one of the architects of President Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. He joins us with why the Democrats may be moving too far to the left in this race. We'll get his analysis coming up. Also, we're headed out to Dearborn, Michigan. It's the largest Arab American community in the United States. We'll talk to them about how they feel about these race-based attacks, the rhetoric that is sort of dominating this race right now. And finally, we're going to take a closer look at the auto industry here in Detroit. GM headquarters just a couple of blocks from here. Motor oil running through the blood of Detroiters. What's the state of the industry right now? We take a look at that and how this city is launching a revival. All of that coming ahead on the briefing room at 3:30. Kimberly?
All right. Thank you, Devin. So again, guys, check out that special edition of the briefing room at 3:30 p.m. today. Don't miss it. And then we'll have live coverage of the debate and everything moving forward. So guys, I'm Kimberly Brooks. Thanks for joining us. And of course, I will see you tomorrow.